The snow fell in thick, choking silence, blanketing the decaying remnants of the Blackwood Orphanage, long abandoned, tucked deep in the shadow-choked pines of upstate New York. Decades had passed since the building last housed children, their laughter swallowed by something far darker. The walls, swollen with rot and secrets, stood like bones beneath the skin of collapsed rafters and sagging beams. But something had survived. Something old. Something hungry. October 17th, present day. Annabelle sat at the edge of the nursery's broken threshold, the pale glow of her phone's flashlight dancing across the dust and shattered wood. She hadn't wanted to come back, had sworn she'd never return to this place. But after the dreams began again, she couldn't ignore it. Those whispers. The dark lullabies. The blood on her pillow that wasn't hers. 10 years ago, she and Lucas had saved the girls, Lily and Victoria. From Mama, the monstrous maternal spirit who had raised them in the forest, feeding off their fear and attachment. In the end, Mama had taken Lily with her into the abyss, leaving only Victoria behind, feral, broken, and traumatized. Now Victoria was gone too. Vanished from the psychiatric facility 3 weeks ago. No sign. No trace. But Annabelle knew where she had gone. Back here. The place Mama had first emerged. The place it all began. Wind howled through the trees like wailing infants. As she moved deeper inside, the stench of mildew and animal decay clung to her skin like sweat. Her flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. She passed the old foyer, where vines had split the floor like veins. To her left, the old dormitories loomed, heavy with an unnatural silence. She heard it before she saw it. A lullaby. Soft. Warbled. Hummed from inside the walls. Annabelle froze, her breath steaming in the cold air. Her hands trembled around the light. Hush, little baby. Don't say a word. She turned abruptly. Nothing. Just shadows and dust. The flashlight dimmed again. Click. Total darkness. Then the light sputtered back to life. And standing at the end of the hallway was a little girl in a tattered nightgown. Hair matted. Eyes wide. Victoria. Victoria. Annabelle whispered, voice cracking with disbelief. The girl didn't respond. She just stood there, swaying slightly. Her arms hung limp at her sides, fingers twitching. Annabelle stepped forward, heart racing. Victoria, it's me. It's Annabelle. I've been looking for you. The girl raised her head. Her eyes were wrong. Pitch black and glistening like oil. Her lips curled into a slow, twisted grin. Annabelle took a step back. Victoria. The girl tilted her head unnaturally far, until it cracked. A sound like bone splitting. Flesh tearing. Her jaw unhinged. From within her throat, something spoke, but it wasn't her voice. It was Mama. You should not have come back. Annabelle screamed and stumbled backward as the girl's body twitched, convulsing violently. Before collapsing onto the floor. A pool of blood spread from beneath her. But when Annabelle rushed forward, the girl was gone. No blood. No body. Nothing. Just a child's drawing, smudged and soaked in water damage. She picked it up with shaking hands. A crayon picture, a tall, black figure with spindly limbs holding 2 girls. One smiled. The other cried blood. At the bottom, scribbled in red. Mama loves all her children. Later that night, Annabelle set up her makeshift camp in the least collapsed room she could find, the old infirmary. It reeked of bleach and something metallic, but the door still latched, and there were no windows. Safer, she figured. She unrolled her sleeping bag and set her camera traps around the room. Paranormal experts might call her foolish for returning. But this wasn't just about investigation. It was family. After everything she and Lucas had lost, if Victoria was still alive, or still something, Annabelle needed to know. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the scratching began. Soft. Rhythmic. From beneath the floorboards. She jolted awake, flashlight in hand, and pointed it downward. The sound stopped. Then came the whisper. Mama 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 mama. A giggle. Then a low, wet crawling sound, something dragging across the wooden planks from inside the floor. Annabelle leapt to her feet, backing away. Suddenly, her camera trap in the corner blinked, captured motion. She raced to check the footage. Static. Then. A frame. Just a few seconds. But there, unmistakable, was the image of a tall, black silhouette hanging upside down from the ceiling, its hair falling like tendrils, arms bent backward like broken wings. Its eyes glowed white. And it was looking directly at her. October 18th. By morning, she wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed get out. But she didn't. Instead, she pushed deeper into the orphanage. She found shattered toys, rusted bed frames, children's drawings smeared with red. Every hallway seemed to breathe. The air was wet, filled with muffled sobbing and giggles that echoed just out of earshot. She discovered a hidden stairwell behind the old chapel. A narrow descent into darkness. The stairs were stone, slippery, covered in scratches, as though children had been dragged downward, clawing for escape. At the bottom was a door. Carved into the wood was a symbol, a twisted sigil she didn't recognize. In the center, the word. Bloodbind. She hesitated. Her heart thudded like a war drum. Then, slowly, she turned the handle. The door creaked open into a forgotten chamber. It was a nursery. Or at least it used to be. Black mold covered the walls like veins. The cribs were overturned. But what horrified her were the paintings, hundreds of them, lining the walls. Painted in blood and mud, they depicted Mama. Not just as a shadowy spirit, but as a god, a towering maternal deity, worshipped by children with blacked-out eyes. At the far end of the room, a mural. A massive tree, its branches twisted into nooses. Beneath it, dozens of children knelt before Mama, who hovered in the air, her arms spread wide, her mouth open in a silent scream. At the base of the mural was an altar. Upon it, a bundle of bones tied with red string. Small. Fragile. Children's bones. And beside them, a journal. Its cover read, Property of Sister Clarice. Entry, July 19, 1902. The children speak of her often. Mama. A spirit. A comforter. A punisher. They say she watches from the trees, from behind mirrors. They say she sings to them when they cry. I thought it a game, until they began disappearing. Their bodies never found. Only whispers. Lullabies. Cold hands in the night. I believe this place is cursed. I fear it is not just Mama who lives here. There are others now. Spirits tied to her. Her, blood children. They are becoming something else. Something monstrous. Annabelle's hands trembled as she flipped the page. A final entry. August 3, 1902. I see her now in my dreams. Her hands reach for me. Her voice lives in my mouth. I wake with the taste of ash and blood. She wants me to join her. To become her hands in the flesh. I've bound the blood bones to keep her buried. But the roots are spreading. She is not a ghost. She is a mother. And all children belong to her in the end. As Annabelle finished reading, the temperature dropped. Her breath turned to frost. A soft lullaby filled the chamber. She turned. Standing behind her was a woman. Emaciated. Pale. Black eyes. Mouth too wide. Hair falling like a curtain of shadow. Mama. But she wasn't alone. Behind her were dozens of children. All pale. All smiling. All dead. Mama missed you, the creature hissed. Annabelle screamed and ran. She didn't stop running until she reached the surface. She collapsed in the snow, gasping, weeping. But as she looked back at the orphanage, something was different. In the topmost window of the nursery, a child watched her, grinning. And behind her, Mama's face slowly emerged from the darkness. October 18 to 7:42 p.m. Annabelle stood outside the crumbling orphanage, her back pressed against a dying oak, trying to slow her breathing. The cold air clawed at her lungs, and her heart thudded like a war drum in her chest. She had seen something no rational mind should endure. Mama was back, or worse, she had never left. But more than that, it wasn't just Mama anymore. There were others now. Children. Twisted. Dead, but not resting. And Victoria. Was she even human anymore? Annabelle looked up at the topmost window of the orphanage. It was empty now. No child. No face. Just broken glass and darkness. She wanted to leave. She should have left. But instead, she pulled her phone from her coat, opened the camera app, and checked the last photo it had captured before the screen glitched. The image was dark, barely visible. But zooming in, there was a shape. Something tall. Draped in black. Its limbs stretched too far in every direction. Its face a sunken mass of black holes for eyes. And behind it, Victoria. Not crying. Not screaming. But smiling. With black eyes and teeth like needles. 10:31 p.m. She returned to the orphanage. Whether to save Victoria or uncover the truth, she wasn't sure anymore. This time, she brought more gear, UV lights, EMF detector, holy water, more out of desperation than belief, and the journal from Sister Clarice. She clutched it like a lifeline as she crossed the threshold again, deeper into the rotting belly of the building. Everything inside felt wetter. Like the walls were sweating. Or bleeding. She could hear something moving beneath her feet. The floorboards were pulsing. Like a heartbeat. Then the hallway lights, dead for years, flickered on one by one. Click. 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 Illuminating a clear path toward the basement stairwell. Annabelle swallowed hard. Mama's showing the way, she whispered. As she reached the basement door again, the air thickened, humid and foul. Her flashlight dimmed as she opened the door, and something brushed past her ankle. She nearly screamed. Just a rat. Bloated and eyeless. But she noticed something smeared across the rat's fur. A red, viscous liquid. Blood. Descending the steps, she passed the blood-bind sigil again, her fingers tracing the grooves on the doorframe. When she pushed open the chamber door, she expected the mural, the altar. But what greeted her instead was different. The nursery was gone. In its place was a root-choked cavern, pulsating with life. The walls were alive, wet, veined, and twitching. It felt like walking into the chest cavity of a dead god. Annabelle's boots squelched in a thick layer of blood-soaked moss. And then, the sound. Children. Singing. From beneath her feet. She dropped to her knees and pressed an ear to the floor. We are Mama's little worms. Digging through her skin so warm. Chew the light and bite the day. Sleep in blood, and never stray. Annabelle reeled back, heart in her throat. The ground. Sleep in blood, and never stray. Annabelle reeled back, heart in her throat. The ground cracked beneath her. Then gave way entirely. She fell. screaming into the dark. Slamming through roots and debris, her flashlight lost, her side crushed against stone. She hit the ground hard. Her arm twisted at an ugly angle, but it wasn't broken. Groaning, she sat up. And froze. She was in a tunnel. Dozens of them. All made of flesh and root, like veins twisting through a corpse. And embedded in the walls. Children's faces. Hundreds. Eyes closed. Mouths sewn shut. Their skin pale and sickly. Some moved as she passed. Twitched. One opened an eye, black and bottomless. "Mama's hungry," it whispered through a stitched mouth. Then a scream echoed down the tunnel. A child's scream. High-pitched. Ragged. Victoria. Annabelle ran. Limping. Gasping. She passed carvings etched in bone. Dolls made from teeth. Symbols drawn in dried milk and blood. Then she reached a chamber. Massive. Circular. And at the center, floating, twisted in the air like a broken marionette, was Victoria. Her body suspended in vines and sinew, arms outstretched, head drooped forward. Beneath her, the floor was a pool of blood, rippling as if it were breathing. Annabelle rushed forward. "Victoria. I'm here. I'm going to get you out." Victoria's head slowly lifted. But it wasn't Victoria's voice that answered. It was Mama's. She belongs to the blood now. From the ceiling, black limbs unfurled like spider legs, and Mama descended, head first, hair dragging like tendrils, eyes glowing. Annabelle pulled the holy water from her bag and hurled it. It hissed as it hit the spirit's body, burning the shadow like acid. Mama screamed, a bone-shattering sound that split Annabelle's ears. The chamber trembled. Victoria fell to the ground, limp. Annabelle scrambled to her, shaking her gently. "Victoria. Wake up. It's me." The girl's eyes fluttered open. Still black. But tears fell. "Annabelle. You're okay," she said, weeping. "You're okay now." "No," Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. We're all her children now." Annabelle looked around. From the walls, hands began to emerge. Dozens. Small. Childlike. Gray and rotting. Then faces. Hundreds of dead children crawling from the walls like maggots. "Mama made us," Victoria said, her voice becoming many voices. "She gave us her love. Her blood. Her womb is beneath. It's calling." Annabelle backed away in horror, dragging Victoria with her. "No," she cried. "You're coming with me. We're leaving. She won't let us go." From behind them, Mama rose from the blood. Twice as large. Her face now split down the middle. Her voice like a choir of dying children. "You left once," she growled. "You took what was mine. I saved them." Annabelle screamed. "You tore them from my arms." She lifted her clawed hands and the chamber shook. The ceiling cracked. And from it, something massive fell, a cocoon. Pulsing. Shaped like a womb. It opened. Inside were hundreds of eyes. All children's. All blinking. Watching. "Mama's womb never sleeps," the entity moaned. The hands reached for Annabelle, clawing, grasping, pulling. She threw everything, salt, holy water, even her camera. The light flashed, bright and blinding. The spirit shrieked. And the walls split open. Victoria screamed as the floor collapsed, and Annabelle lost her grip. They fell again. Unknown time, unknown depth. Annabelle awoke in a corridor of meat. Walls breathing. Blood dripping from the ceiling like rain. She stood, soaked, broken, alone. In the distance, footsteps. Then, laughter. Children's laughter. And the lullaby again. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna cut out your voice unheard. As she moved forward, she found a door. An old wooden one, almost ordinary, set in the wall of rot. Etched on it. Blood ties never break. She reached out, trembling. Her fingers touched the knob. And behind her, Victoria's voice. Annabelle. She turned. And her blood ran cold. It was Victoria. But she wasn't alone anymore. Behind her stood the other children. Pale. Hollow-eyed. And Mama. A towering mass of flesh and hate. All smiling. Somewhere beneath the orphanage. October 19th, unknown time. Annabelle stared, paralyzed with horror, as Victoria stepped forward from the darkness. The girl's skin was pale and bruised, her eyes pools of bottomless black. But it was her smile, twisted, hollow, that sent a chill crawling up Annabelle's spine like frostbite on bone. Behind her, a dozen dead children stood in silence, all staring at Annabelle with inhuman stillness. Their mouths began to move in unison. Mama's blood is warm. Mama's blood is deep. Mama calls you home. Mama needs to keep. Annabelle backed against the door behind her, the one carved with the words, "Blood ties never break." The old wood was damp, warm like flesh. She reached for the handle, but it throbbed beneath her fingers, as if alive. "Victoria," Annabelle whispered, eyes brimming with tears. "Please. Fight her. You don't belong to her. She's not your mother." Victoria's expression flickered, just for a second. Pain. Confusion. And then, rage. She came when no one else did, the girl growled in a voice far too deep for her throat. She held us in the dark. She fed us. She sang when we screamed. What did you do? You left. I tried to save you. Annabelle shouted. I risked everything to bring you back from her. You brought me back to silence, Victoria hissed. To needles. To bright lights. To screaming dreams and pills that burned. The children took a step forward. All at once. Mama loves us. Mama keeps us. Mama makes us whole. Behind them, the shadows thickened. Mama emerged. Not from the wall. Not from the floor. But from the children themselves. Her limbs grew from their mouths and backs like vines. Her face stretched from their stomachs. She assembled herself from their bodies, dragging her tangled form across the wet stone. Her voice was no longer a whisper. It was a choir of unborn things. You should have died with them, she said. But now, you'll be reborn. Annabelle grabbed a shard of broken iron from the floor, a rusted beam, and swung it at Mama's reaching hand. It passed through the air. No impact. No blood. Mama was not entirely here. Not yet. But the womb, the source, was close. Annabelle made a decision. She turned and ripped open the fleshy door behind her, plunging into the passage beyond. It slammed shut behind her with a sickening wet thud. The corridor beyond was unlike anything above. It pulsed with blood. The walls were lined with bone, fused into the architecture. Teeth jutted from the ceiling like stalactites. The floor squished with every step, soft like raw muscle. Annabelle's breathing was shallow. She could feel the oxygen changing. Growing thick. Heavy with iron and rot. This was no longer a building. It was a body. And she was inside it. As she descended a spiral of slick stairs, she began to hear it, a heartbeat. Not hers. Not human. Slow. Immense. All-encompassing. It came from below. From the womb. The womb below was not a room. It was a cathedral of flesh. A cavern so massive she couldn't see its ceiling. The walls curved like ribs. The floor was a lake of thick blood, its surface rippling with something alive beneath. And at the center, a monstrous cocoon, suspended in a nest of pulsating veins. 10 feet tall. Covered in twitching faces. All weeping. Each face was a child. Some looked centuries old. Some looked newborn. They spoke as one. Mama made us. Mama bled us. Mama bore us from the dark. And Mama waits for you. Annabelle trembled, stepping toward the cocoon. A wave of nausea hit her. She doubled over, retching, but nothing came out. The air itself was poison. And then, from the ceiling, something descended. Long umbilical. Dripping. A massive, black umbilical cord. It snaked down toward her, searching. Searching for skin. For a host. She dodged it. It whipped past her and cracked like a whip, slashing open the wall. From the gash poured bones. Tiny ones. Infant skulls. They bounced across the floor like stones tossed into water. She turned toward the cocoon, screaming, "What are you?" And then the faces answered. We were the unwanted. We were the lost. We were the screaming secrets of dead mothers. And Mama. Mama found us all. The blood lake began to bubble. From it, a shape began to rise. A woman's body. But monstrous. Torso split open like a flower in bloom. Dozens of arms writhing from her abdomen. Her face. No, not one face. But thousands. A kaleidoscope of infant screams. She looked at Annabelle and whispered in 100 voices. Come inside. Be born again. Annabelle turned and ran. She didn't know where. Just away. The cocoon's walls split open behind her. The umbilical chased her, slamming into the ground beside her like a serpent. Blood rose around her knees. The heartbeat pounded louder. Her ears bled. Every corner of this place was alive, and it wanted her. She turned into a smaller tunnel, barely squeezing through. She crawled. Crawled through bone. Through meat. Through the afterbirth of whatever this thing had become. Until she collapsed into another chamber. Smaller. Silent. And in the center. A crib. An old wooden crib. Rocking. Empty. But around it were toys. Rusted. Broken. Carved with symbols. And scrawled on the wall. Mama wasn't always a monster. Annabelle approached the wall, running her fingers over the message. It had been written in chalk, or bone dust. She saw a second line below it, smaller. Mama was made. Not born. A third. They buried her children beneath the stone. And she came back wrong. Annabelle looked at the crib again. Inside was something she hadn't noticed at first. A photograph. Old. Burnt at the edges. She picked it up. A woman. 19th century. Young. Beautiful. Sad. And surrounded by dead babies. Laid out in rows. And beneath her, a noose. Annabelle flipped the photo. Scrawled and faded. Margarita Graves. Accused of witchcraft. Lost all 13 children in Blackwood Orphanage. Hanged 1871. Her heart skipped. Mama had a name. Mama had children. And Mama's soul had birthed something unholy when they died. This wasn't just vengeance. It was a resurrection gone wrong. A mother's grief turned rot. But as Annabelle turned back toward the tunnel, she saw something impossible. Victoria. Again. But not the same one. This Victoria looked younger. Clean. Her eyes human. The child smiled sadly. "You've gone too far," she whispered. "She's inside you now." "What? You breathed her in. Drank her blood. You can't run. You're part of her." Annabelle backed away. "No, no, I'm not like her." The child reached forward and touched her forehead. Suddenly, pain exploded in her skull. She collapsed, screaming. And then she saw it. Visions. Of Mama's birth. The orphanage in flames. Children screaming as roots pulled them below. A woman hanged, weeping. Her spirit bursting from her womb, not rising to heaven, not descending to hell, but splitting. Becoming something else. Feeding on grief. Feeding on blood ties. Annabelle awoke in the dirt. Alone. Back in the nursery. But the walls were soaked. The blood still dripped. And etched into the wall beside her. "You are with child." Her hands went to her stomach. And she felt something move. October 20 to 3:14 a.m. Blackwood Orphanage, nursery ruins. Annabelle sat motionless, her back pressed to the nursery wall, cold sweat soaking her skin despite the suffocating heat radiating from the pulsing walls. Her hands trembled on her abdomen, pressed to the flesh where, just minutes ago, she had felt something shift. Something move. Her stomach was flat. There was no swelling. No pain. But deep inside her, something was growing. Something not born from flesh and blood. But from rot and sorrow. From Mama. "No," she whispered. "It's not real. It's a trick. It's her poison inside my head." But even as she said it, her body betrayed her, a twitch beneath the ribs. A flutter. A tremor. Then, a faint sound. A heartbeat. Not hers. She rose shakily, the nursery spinning around her like a carousel of death. Her boots crunched over shattered dolls and half-melted cribs. The air tasted like rust. Every breath she took was thick with the scent of afterbirth and wet decay. Across the room, the broken mirror she'd seen earlier was now whole, gleaming, untouched. Annabelle approached it. Her reflection stared back. But it wasn't her. The woman in the glass was older. Hollow. Her face gaunt, lips blue. Her eyes, black. Mama's eyes. The reflection tilted its head. Then grinned. From the mirror's surface, a cold hand burst outward, grabbing Annabelle's wrist. Her scream echoed through the nursery as she struggled. The reflection stepped through, its skin dripping like candle wax, hair tangled with umbilical cords. It pulled her close and whispered in a voice that split the world. "You are the vessel now. The womb to rebirth what was lost. Blood calls to blood. Mama's seed is planted." 30 minutes later. Annabelle ran blindly through the corridors of the orphanage, now twisted into impossible angles, endless loops, and doorways that led to rooms that shouldn't exist. She passed entire classrooms full of child-sized bones arranged into ritual symbols, ceilings that dripped with breast milk, and walls that whispered names in hundreds of voices. Annabelle. Victoria. Lily. Clarice. Lucas. The names of the dead. The possessed. The stolen. Every time she paused to rest, she felt it again. A kick. A ripple. A soft gurgle of something that was not alive, but becoming. She fell to her knees near a ruined stairwell, hands covering her ears. "Get out of me!" she sobbed. "I'm not yours." But in response, something laughed from inside her. Not just a baby's laugh. A choir of them. High-pitched. Broken. Like dolls choking on razor blades. Then, a new sound. A child's lullaby. Sung in perfect pitch. Soft. Mocking. Rockabye baby, in the womb made. Mama will love you, even in grave. When you awaken, blood will be spilled. All of the children, broken and filled. Annabelle looked up, and saw Victoria standing in the hallway above. Not feral. Not monstrous. Just, solemn. She held something in her arms. A baby. Gray. Slippery. Its head too large, with veins pulsing beneath translucent skin. Eyes wide open, staring directly at Annabelle. Black eyes. Mama's eyes. Your turn is coming, Victoria said. Mama chose you. No, Annabelle whispered. She forced this. She only gives what's deserved, Victoria said. You took us from her. Now you give one back. The baby giggled. Then opened its mouth. And screamed. Annabelle's body locked. Her legs collapsed. Her hands clawed at her stomach. Something inside her shifted, like a worm turning in soil. Her eyes rolled back. Blood trickled from her nose. Images flashed in her head. A tree hung with infants like ornaments. A womb carved into stone, filled with teeth. Mama, crouched over a mass of crying children, feeding them pieces of herself. Then, darkness. Later, unknown time. She awoke in chains. Iron shackles around her wrists, ankles, and stomach. She was back in the underground cathedral, the womb below. The cocoon pulsed brighter now. Its faces all smiling. Victoria stood over her, along with two other children, unfamiliar, but clearly dead. Their flesh sagged. Their fingernails were teeth. Annabelle tried to scream, but her voice cracked. She's almost ready, Victoria said, kneeling beside her. You've been ripening. Mama's child grows fast. All the love she poured into the void, you carry it now. This isn't a child, Annabelle choked out. It's a curse. Victoria looked down, almost sad. So were we. Then, from the darkness, Mama emerged. But she was different now. Her form was more human. More maternal. Her hair neatly braided. Her face beautiful, but hollow. A perfect mask of motherhood. She touched Annabelle's forehead. And everything inside her went cold. Esvitich, Mama cooed. The pain is the door. The blood is the key. The ritual began. The children circled her. Singing. Moaning. Bleeding. They carved ancient runes into the stone using their own bones. Mama lifted a bowl filled with a thick, black liquid. She pressed it to Annabelle's lips. Drink, she said. And you'll see. Annabelle turned her head away. Mama's voice grew deeper. More demonic. Drink. And be reborn. A dozen hands grabbed her head, forcing the bowl to her lips. The liquid entered her mouth like sludge, crawling down her throat, alive and burning. Visions again. This time, she became Mama. She felt the betrayal of the nuns who buried her children alive in the crypt to cleanse the evil. She felt the agony of 13 stillborns. She felt her neck snap in the noose. And then she opened her eyes as Mama. She saw the world of flesh. She built the womb below. She dragged the forgotten back. She birthed the dead. And now, she would complete the circle. Annabelle came back to herself, screaming. The chains were gone. The children were gone. The cocoon was cracked. The womb was open. And from its center, crawling out on all fours, was a child. Gray-skinned. Hairless. Its face smooth and empty. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin stretched over bone. But as it approached, a face formed. Annabelle's face. The child looked up at her with her own eyes. And whispered. "Mama." Annabelle collapsed, weeping, her sanity fraying like thread soaked in acid. She could feel it now. The seed inside her had taken root. She wasn't going to give birth. She was going to be split open. Bloomed. Her body was just a cocoon. The child she saw wasn't outside of her. It was a glimpse of what she would become. A mother of monsters. She stood slowly. Blood leaked from between her legs. She was changing. She could feel the bones in her back twisting. Her fingernails blackening. Her teeth were loose. Some had fallen out onto the floor. Small. Sharp. Like a child's. Then, voices surrounded her. Victoria. The other children. Mama. A chant. She blooms. She breaks. The new womb wakes. Annabelle let out a scream that cracked the air. She made a choice. If she couldn't stop Mama from growing inside her. If she couldn't cut it out. She'd burn it. She reached for a lantern hanging from the wall, some ancient oil lamp Mama used in her twisted rituals. She tore it free. Smashed it at her feet. The flames caught quickly, hungrily, licking up the wet roots, the altar, the dried blood. Mama's voice screeched from every direction. Victoria screamed, "No. No." The womb shuddered. The cocoon burst. And from inside, something massive and twitching crawled toward her. But Annabelle didn't run. She stood her ground. She was fire now. Screaming, she hurled the last of the flames at the cocoon. The womb exploded in a tower of shrieking fire. And the cathedral collapsed. Silence. Ash fell like snow. Bones crackled in the heat. And in the center, Annabelle stood, skin burned, lips blistered, but alive. Or so she thought. Until she looked down. And saw her stomach. Swollen. And from within. A hand pressed outward against the skin. October 21 to 4:44 a.m. Blackwood Orphanage ruins. The nursery was ash. The womb had burned. The altar had crumbled. But Annabelle still stood, alive in the middle of ruin, her breath ragged, her skin blistered, and her sanity slowly unraveling. And despite the fire, despite the death, despite the screams that still echoed in the depths of her skull. It had not ended. Because something had survived inside her. And it was waking up. She stared at her belly. It was no longer flat. It bulged now, unnaturally round, skin stretched taut and veiny as though whatever was inside had grown months in a single night. From within, something pressed outward, a hand. Tiny, but too sharp. The imprint it left behind was clawed, inhuman. Annabelle screamed and fell back onto the blood-stained floor, her legs buckling as the pain surged through her abdomen like hot knives. It wasn't labor. It was mutation. Like her body was being rewritten from the inside out. She fumbled for her pack. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. No signal. The camera opened, barely functioning through cracked glass. She flipped it to selfie mode. And what stared back was not her. Her eyes were going dark. Her lips were turning blue. And something moved beneath the skin of her neck, shifting, like it was climbing up her throat. She gagged and fell to her hands and knees, vomiting black liquid that sizzled on contact with the ground. The air smelled of rot and metal. Footsteps echoed behind her. Slow. Bare. Wet. She turned. Victoria stood there. But she wasn't alone. A ring of children formed behind her, dozens of them. All pale. All stitched and smiling. Their eyes empty. Their faces slack. Mama's army. And at the center, Mama herself emerged once more. But this time, she had changed. She was no longer a phantom. No longer a drifting spirit. She had taken flesh. Her body had formed from the fire and blood. Skeletal, tall, soaked in afterbirth and sorrow. She no longer whispered. She spoke. Clear. Cold. Final. The womb has been cleansed. The vessel remains. It is time, my daughter. Annabelle tried to stand, staggering. I'm not your daughter. You twisted my body, my mind, my soul. Mama glided closer, her arms outstretched. You were chosen. Just like all mothers. Burdened. Bleeding. But loved. And now, you give life. Annabelle fell to her knees again, clutching her swollen belly. Inside her, the creature twisted violently, its bones cracking as they rearranged. She could feel it thinking. It knew her. And it hated her. I won't let you take me, Annabelle hissed. Mama smiled. Her mouth stretched wide, splitting to her ears. You were never yours to begin with. Suddenly, agony. A piercing bolt of pain split through Annabelle's spine. Her mouth opened in a scream so loud it shook the walls. She looked down. Blood soaked her thighs. The skin of her stomach began to split. Just beneath the surface, something was clawing outward. Trying to be born. Trying to crawl out. She ran. Barely able to walk. Barely able to breathe. But she ran. She fled through the burning corridors of the orphanage, now collapsing around her, walls splitting, ceilings falling, flames reaching like hands. Mama's laughter followed her like wine through dead trees. She could hear the children chanting. Push it out, break her wide. Mama's seed will never die. She reached the outside. The woods. The cold air burned her skin. But the orphanage glowed behind her, a red, pulsing wound in the earth. Her vision blurred. Everything inside her screamed. And then. She collapsed. Right there in the snow. Alone. 5:09 a.m. The forest edge. She awoke to silence. Moonlight bathed the forest in cold blue. The pain was gone. Her belly was flat again. But something lay next to her. Wrapped in her torn coat. Moving. Breathing. She turned her head slowly. And saw it. The child. No larger than a newborn. But its skin was gray. Its limbs too long. Its head twice the size it should be. Its mouth filled with needle-sharp teeth. But the eyes. Annabelle's eyes. It stared at her and cooed. Then smiled. Not like a baby. But like a predator. Her breath caught in her throat. The thing reached for her. Its fingers touched her cheek. And in her mind, she heard it speak. You gave me form. You gave me warmth. I give you forever. Annabelle screamed and kicked it away, scrambling back. The creature cried out, not in pain, but in rage. Its scream pierced the trees, sent birds scattering from branches. From behind her, the woods answered. Footsteps. More of them. Dozens. The children were coming. Mama's children. Drawn to their sibling. To their new king. Annabelle ran again. But her body was breaking. Her limbs numb. Her vision splitting. She knew, she wasn't going to make it far. She collapsed beneath an old dead tree, sobbing. Above her, the moon turned red. Blood dripped from the sky in soft, cold drops. She looked up through blurred eyes. And saw Mama again. But this time. Mama did not approach. She knelt beside the monstrous infant. Lifted it with trembling hands. Cradled it to her chest. And sang. Sleep, my darling, monster child. Born from womb defiled and wild. Teeth like knives and blood so sweet. Flesh to break and hearts to eat. The baby looked back at Annabelle and smiled. Then turned and pressed its face to Mama's neck. And bit. Mama laughed, even as black blood poured down her body. She did not resist. She whispered. Feed, my love. Grow. Annabelle closed her eyes. Tears slid down her cheeks as snow began to fall. She felt her heart slow. And from within her chest, a second heartbeat pulsed. She opened her eyes in horror. Looked down. Her belly was swelling again. Another one. Another child. Another seed. There would be more. And somewhere, far in the city, in a quiet hospital room, a nurse checking a sleeping child suddenly dropped the chart in her hand. The infant in the crib smiled at her. With black eyes. And Mama's grin. October 22 to 9:13 a.m. Black Hollow County, Outer Region. The sun rose, but it brought no warmth. The morning sky was smeared with dark crimson clouds, and the air felt thick, like breathing through wet cotton. Birds no longer sang. Trees leaned inward, branches warped like twisted fingers pointing toward the dead heart of Blackwood Orphanage. And somewhere far beneath its ashes, Mama's kingdom had begun to grow. 6 miles away, a dairy farm stood still and silent. The animals had broken free of their pens during the night, but none had escaped the barn. Every cow, every goat, every creature had been slaughtered, but not eaten. The walls of the barn were lined with symbols, drawn in blood. Human blood. And in the loft, sitting peacefully among rotting hay, were 4 children. They stared at the horizon. They whispered in one voice. She's awake. Then they stood up in unison and walked toward the road. Their eyes were black. Their veins pulsed red. And beneath their shirts, something squirmed against their skin, pulsing, unborn things. Meanwhile, Annabelle stumbled through a roadside gas station restroom, her body barely functioning. Her reflection in the broken mirror above the sink looked like something already dead. Her skin had gone pale and cracked, like aging porcelain. Her lips were bruised black. Blood leaked from her ears and fingernails. But worst of all, she could feel them inside her. Growing. Multiplying. I burned it. I burned it, she whispered to herself, clawing at her stomach. How can this still be happening? She slammed her fist into the mirror, shattering it. A woman entered the restroom behind her, a gas station clerk, maybe 19. Ma'am. Are you okay? You're. Annabelle turned toward her too fast. The girl recoiled. There was something wrong with Annabelle's face now. Her eyes flickered between brown and bottomless black. Her mouth was twitching. Something moved beneath her cheek. The girl backed out quickly. Annabelle dropped to her knees and screamed, a guttural, animalistic sound. And something inside her screamed back. Back in Blackwood City. Hospitals were filling fast. It started with infants. They'd stop crying. Then they'd smile. Then their eyes would darken. Doctors blamed it on a virus. Nurses whispered of demonic possession. One nurse tried to drown a baby in a sink. When questioned, she said only, "That wasn't a child. It was a thing wearing a child." Security camera footage showed the infant crawling across the ceiling minutes after she was dragged away. Then it vanished. The infection wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. Mama's reach extended through memories, bloodlines, and dreams. Everyone connected to Blackwood Orphanage, anyone with family there, even generations back, began to change. A mailman gouged out his own eyes and sang lullabies as the police dragged him away. A teacher at a nearby elementary school hanged herself above her classroom's reading circle. Her final note simply read: "She wants them all back." Mama was building a kingdom. Not of stone. Not of fire. But of flesh and blood. Every mother infected would carry more seeds. Every child born would carry the echo of the womb. And they would rise. Annabelle. She wandered the roadside, arms hugging her stomach, her breath shallow and cracked. A family in a passing SUV stopped for her. The father stepped out, seeing her collapsed in the gravel. "You okay, miss? You need a hospital." Annabelle looked up. Her eyes were black. The man took a step back. Too late. Her mouth opened far too wide. And she screamed. Not sound, but sickness. A wave of invisible energy shattered the SUV's windows, sent the children inside screaming. The father began to vomit blood. He fell. Annabelle stood. Her hands glowing red. Mama had chosen her to lead. But Annabelle, somewhere deep inside, was still fighting. Still human. Still herself. She ran into the woods. And collapsed at the edge of a clearing, right where it had all started. The old Blackwood graveyard. Where they'd buried Mama over 150 years ago. Where the original children had been hidden beneath the stones. Annabelle crawled toward a broken headstone. Margarita Graves. Mama's real name. Her real grave. "End me here," Annabelle gasped, her hand shaking as she reached into her pack and pulled out a small vial, a last resort. A vial of blessed mercury and salt. Something Sister Clarice had whispered about in the last page of her journal. If the vessel carries the seed, it must be destroyed at the mother's root. Annabelle lifted the vial. But a voice stopped her. "No, no, no, sweet girl." Mama stood across the grave. Her new body perfect now. Flowing black gown of shadow and hair. Her face beautiful but ancient. And in her arms, the firstborn. The child Annabelle had delivered in the snow. It was bigger now. Walking. Smiling. It waved at her with a mouth full of teeth. "You can't end what has already begun," Mama said. "You are the tree now. You are the soil. And we've planted so many roots inside you." Annabelle cried. Fell to her knees. "I never wanted this." "You wanted love," Mama said gently. "You wanted purpose. What better purpose than to birth a new world?" Suddenly. A noise. From the graveyard trees. Survivors. Men with torches. Guns. Holy symbols. A priest. They had followed the signs. Tracked the screams. They saw Annabelle. They saw Mama. And they opened fire. The bullets passed through Mama like mist. But when one hit Annabelle, she bled. And Mama screamed in rage. "No. She's mine." The ground beneath them erupted. Graves opened. From below, children's hands clawed out. The dead began to rise. But not as corpses. As flesh-born extensions of Mama. Slick. Crawling. Glowing red. The kingdom had its first army. Gunfire rang. One survivor was dragged under. Another. Ripped apart by children who wept while they tore out his organs. Annabelle rolled behind a headstone, clutching the mercury vial. The priest knelt beside her, covered in blood. You're the womb," he whispered. "Yes," Annabelle sobbed. "But I didn't choose this." He nodded. Then handed her his crucifix. Then make your choice now. Mama loomed above them, screaming like a banshee, the air blackening. She reached for Annabelle. But Annabelle stood. Mercury vial in one hand. Crucifix in the other. She looked at Mama. Then at the child. Then at the sky. And whispered. Let it end with me. She drove the crucifix into her own chest. And shattered the vial. The explosion was silent. Just light. White light. Pure. The kind of light that hurts the dead. Mama screamed as her children melted. The trees ignited. The grave cracked wide open. And the firstborn burst into flames. But Annabelle did not die. Not yet. She stood in the light. Body scorched. Eyes gone. Voice barely a whisper. And said. Your kingdom ends here, Mama. Mama writhed. Fell to her knees. And faded into smoke. Silence. Ashes. Stillness. The priest crawled to Annabelle. Her body was hollow. But smiling. Because inside her. The seed had burned. Or so she thought. Because deep, deep beneath the soil. Where no light touched. Where the first seed was buried. A single heartbeat echoed. Then a second. Then many. October 23rd, just before midnight. Somewhere below Blackwood County. The earth beneath Blackwood County had split. They called it a sinkhole. They called it a collapse. But it wasn't. It was a birthing wound. A hole torn into the flesh of the world. And from beneath it, something moved. Something enormous. Something ancient. Something made of every scream, every stillborn sob, every echo of a mother's grief that was ever swallowed in silence. 3 days after the ritual. They found Annabelle's body wrapped in roots in the center of the shattered graveyard. No heart. No eyes. No soul. But she was smiling. Her lips were split wide in a final, broken grin. She had burned the firstborn. She had pierced her own heart with a holy relic. She had poured mercury into her womb. But even that hadn't been enough. Because Mama was never just one. Beneath the roots of the old orphanage, beneath the grave of Margarita graves, beneath the chapel and its cursed hymnals, the final cradle waited. Not a place. Not a shrine. A world. The final cradle. The deepest part of the womb below. A space between dimensions where Mama, not the ghost, not the curse, but the source of sorrow itself, had hidden her truest creation. The core of her kingdom. October 25th, global broadcast outage. Unknown locations across the globe. Hospitals across the world began to report simultaneous disappearances. Children born in the last 48 hours had vanished from their cribs. Security cameras went black moments before. The only audio left on the tapes. A lullaby. Dozens of voices, soft and overlapping. All whispering the same line. Mama's coming home. Then came the sightings. A woman, pale, hair dragging behind her like roots, seen standing outside maternity wards in the rain. No footsteps. No breath. Just the children's rooms filling with black mold. Doctors began dying. Fathers lost their minds. Mothers began waking up at 3:33 a.m. every night, screaming. Some couldn't remember giving birth at all. Others gave birth to stillborns, that moved days later. Annabelle. But Annabelle hadn't died. Her body was found dead. But her soul had been dragged below. Past the echoing corridors of blood. Past the halls of the unbaptized dead. To the heart of Mama's true domain. She floated in an endless void of crimson light, suspended in afterbirth and whispering fog. And there, at the center of everything, was Mama. But she was no longer a woman. She was the womb itself. A monstrous chrysalis of tendrils and mouths, endlessly birthing copies of Annabelle. Each one falling into a pool and dissolving. Over. And over. And over. You couldn't stop me, Mama cooed. You only slowed the water. The dam was already broken. You, my sweet first mother, you were the key. Annabelle screamed, but no sound came. Mama reached out with 1,000 hands. Touched her mind. And opened her memory like a flower. You were born crying. So. I came. I came for your sadness. And suddenly. Annabelle remembered things that weren't hers. Screams from wombs that never bore names. Cradles soaked in blood. Fathers with razors. Mothers with prayers that never worked. She saw all of it. Felt every death. And realized. Mama wasn't one ghost. She was all the forgotten mothers. All the unwanted children. All the pain no God ever answered. She had become grief itself. And now. She wanted to spread it to the living. Annabelle was lowered onto a slab of bone. Tendrils wrapped around her again. The final seed was ready. It had been growing inside her since birth. It wasn't what she carried in the forest. It was what she had always been destined to bring into the world. The air. Above ground, the world burns. Governments fell into chaos. Thousands of children began speaking in tongues. Entire daycares disappeared. Cemeteries split open and bled black blood. Flesh-colored vines began growing from basement drains and nursery walls. One city, Grayson, Ohio, vanished entirely. Replaced by a massive stone crib, miles wide, filled with sobbing infants made of ash and teeth. Helicopters caught the last image. A towering, skeletal woman, sitting among the cribs, rocking the entire city to sleep. Back below, the birth. Mama held Annabelle in her final moments. You thought fire would stop me. That blood could be burned. But don't you understand? Blood remembers. It grows even when you hate it. Even when you try to cut it out. Annabelle's belly split one last time. Not with a scream. But with a song. A full choir of voices poured from her chest. And from inside her. The air was born. It wasn't a child. It was a god. Small. Fragile looking. But with no skin. All nerve. All scream. All pain. It had hundreds of mouths. It had Annabelle's face stitched to its back. And its first word was, Mama. Mama wept. My kingdom is complete. The final cradle rose. From beneath the planet. Tearing open mountains. Spilling through oceans. The sky went black as veins of flesh rose into the clouds. And the last prayer heard on earth was a mother's wail. 1 year later. What remains of earth? Nothing green grows. The moon is red. The sun flickers like a dying bulb. Humanity has scattered. The air carries lullabies. Sometimes children walk into towns. Their eyes black. Their mouths silent. And those who follow them never return. Annabelle walks too. But she is no longer fully herself. She has no voice. No mind. Only instinct. She wanders from ruin to ruin. Touching the wombs of surviving women. Planting seeds. So that the air may spread. So that Mama's bloodline may consume. So that no child is ever forgotten again. Because now, the world is the cradle. And Mama rocks it, forever. The end. But Mama never really ends, does she?